But let me start with what could potentially be the story of a shortened and weird offseason for the NBA. The Lakers got better by going out and adding Dennis Schroeder. Inarguably better. Here's a guy you can run pick and roll with. He can score, is still in the prime athletically of his career. They need somebody who can break down a defense. Dennis Schroeder is not a great superstar player in his own, but considering what the Lakers need, he'll work. The Milwaukee Bucks got better. I love Drew Holiday. I've loved Drew Holiday since I watched him play at Campbell Hall in high school, which is, I could walk there from here and be exhausted, but it's like a mile from where I broadcast from. And they added Bogdan Bogdanovic. Name so nice, they named him twice, right? They got shooting. They got a combo guard. They got leadership. They got guys that can play with and without the basketball. The Bucks got better. Plus, I'm not a big Bledsoe guy, and George Hill's washed. But the big news is the possibility that James Harden joins the Brooklyn Nets. Now, there's part of this which goes, hey, the Nets don't really want him, right? But it does feel like Sean Marks, the Kiwi, he may have a little bit of his hands tied, right? Because Sean Marks wasn't actually really going after Kevin Durant. They wanted Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving was like, I'm going to bring with me is Kevin Durant. And they brought Kevin Durant. And now apparently James Harden, who's been working out with the two of them close to here in Los Angeles, wants to join them. And on paper, you have 3 star players. I have no problem calling James Harden a superstar. He's a former MVP. I have no problem calling Kevin Durant a superstar. He's a former MVP, and he's a 2-time Finals MVP. And I have no problem calling Kyrie Irving a superstar, not just because he hit the big shot to win an NBA championship, coming back from 3 games to 1, but if you know anything about the shoe game, Kyrie's shoe it's kind of the most popular shoe for the kids these days. They have the girl version, the kid version, the Kyrie version, the adult version. There's a bunch of different, Kevin Durant has cool shoes. Giannis has cool shoes. They're all Nikes. Kyrie's are more popular. He's a superstar. But man, I so want it to happen because, like many people, it feels so much like it won't work. Because in and of itself, there is risk in hiring a Steve Nash, but there's a logic to it, right? For Kyrie Irving, a guy who struggled to make everybody else better despite his immense skill, bringing in Steve Nash, who that's all he did was sacrifice himself, make others better, a 2-time MVP. That all makes sense. It's hard. It was hard for Brad Stevens, who didn't play Division I basketball, let alone superstar NBA basketball, to converse on an appropriate level with Kyrie. I'm just telling you how Kyrie is wired. No matter how smart or how gifted Brad Stevens is as a basketball coach, that's a hard one. So you got Jock Vaughn, who played, and Steve Nash, who played and was an MVP. And the idea is hey, if anybody can convince Kyrie Irving to play for others, not just for himself, to buy into defensive concepts, not just Kyrie ball, who better than guys that have actually done it at the highest level? And then you have Kevin Durant, who, bit of a chameleon, can find a home everywhere he's been. The Nets, of course, played great team basketball under Kenny Atkins, and they know they'll have to switch it and play a little bit more ISO ball with the immensely talented Kevin Durant. But KD can probably lead and work with, we think, Kyrie Irving because they're great, great friends. And then you add James Harden, who, look, he likes to pass. He can really score. He's a great player. Oh, but he doesn't play any defense. Kyrie doesn't play him any defense. Between the egos, the lack of a strong presence as a head coach, a franchise that hasn't won anything in almost 2 decades. And oh yeah, by the way, Mike D'Antoni is on staff. It's not like they're preaching and teaching defense to anybody who's going to convert Kyrie and convert James Harden. They all need the ball to be successful. And last time I checked, unless with the new 72-game season, they're going to play with 3 basketballs, it feels like sharing might be caring and they might not care. That feels like the worst good idea of all time. Right? Here, it's a good idea because on paper, James Harden likes to handle, can really pass. Kevin Durant is arguably the best scorer in the league, has led the league in scoring, I think, 5 or 6 times, and he likes to pass. And he's played championship basketball and won the big games. And so has Kyrie Irving. But I remember something a friend of mine said about a different sport when he said, I like ice cream and I like spaghetti. But you know what doesn't go together? Ice cream and spaghetti. I like Kevin Durant. I like Kyrie Irving. They're incredibly talented. I wish I had the repertoire of finishing shots of Kyrie Irving and maybe even the handle of Kyrie. I wish I had the ability to stop and pull up and shoot a jump shot the way that Kevin Durant did. And you know what? James Harden has as diverse and immense a skill set with the basketball as anybody. I like ice cream. I like spaghetti. That's spaghetti and ice cream together. Same time. It feels like such a beautiful disaster. And you can sit here and tell me, hey, in Oklahoma City, it nearly worked. They got to an NBA Finals. Yeah, that's back before they had MVPs and egos and hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank, and they had played one way where they'd become superstars and had others fall by their wayside. James Harden didn't like coming off the bench in his first couple years in the NBA. You think he's going to like it now? And to people who's like, well, he turned down $110 million yesterday. He's still under contract for 2 more years. Whether Houston plays hardball or Sean Marks, the GM of the Nets, says, the price is too high. Sorry, I tried. Or it actually takes place and happens. Well, I think I'm choosing for them to take place and it actually to happen. Because this would be a beautiful disaster. You know what it'd be like? It'd be like the Titanic. Right? Because the story of the Titanic was, it was too perfect to sink. They threw everything that they had. We're going to make it the biggest. We're going to make it the best. We're going to do this. We're going to make these compartments where even if this one compartment in the hull is compromised, there's other hull compartments that won't be compromised. It could never, unsinkable. And on paper, 3 superstars, 2 of whom are very good passers, 1 of whom has become a good defender and rim protector and likes to pass. On paper, you're like, you know what? That could work. Kevin Durant's coming off an Achilles tendon tear. The likelihood is he's not the same guy. Kyrie Irving's always hurt. James Harden plays no defense. And he's not performed well in the playoffs. Kyrie can't get along with anybody, and LeBron wanted to get rid of him after they won an NBA title. And Kevin Durant can't stop fighting with people on social media. Oh, yeah, by the way, Steve Nash, their head coach, he has never blown a whistle in a real game in his life. And you got Kyrie saying, you don't actually need a head coach. Other than that, and they're the team in New York that people barely care about. Doesn't matter how good they are, because they've been better than the Knicks. For years, many times, the Nets were in the NBA Finals. The Knicks were still more popular. Other than that, it sounds perfect. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the show? God, I want it to happen. I want it to happen. And then on some level, I don't, because I kind of want Kevin Durant to show that he can win a title outside of there. But I want it to happen.